Burial rites of the Banqiang culture. The burial rites of the prehistoric Banqiang population consisted of burying the corpse accompanied by offerings. This implies a belief of life after death. The offerings found in the burials include ceramic vessels, food remains, utensils, and ornamental items decorating the corpses. The type and quantity of offerings varied from grave to grave, suggesting social status differences among the ancient population. Grave offerings of burials in the later periods outnumbered those of the earliest period. Ceramic vessels were also placed in the burials in different patterns. Many of the remains were buried in extended positions with arms close to the body, hands next to the hips, and ankles close together. This might suggest the bodies may have been wrapped and tied prior to burial. This idea is supported by the discovery of textile remains and imprints on some grave offerings. The burial practices of the Banqiang culture can be divided into three separate phases. During the early period, we saw three types of burials: supine, or extended burials, with one or more pots containing food placed at the head or the foot of the grave; jar burials, used primarily for infants and small children; and flexed burials, which were very rare. The middle period was characterized by the supine or extended burial. In this type of burial, several pots were intentionally broken, and the resulting fragments were used to cover the corpse. In some burials, fragments were also placed beneath the remains. Offering of intact pots was still practiced. The offering pots were mainly large and white with ridged shoulders and decorated with red or incised designs around the opening. During the late stages of this period, pots with painted rims became common. Implements and ornamental items found in these burials were mainly made of bronze. Towards the end of the period, bimetallic objects made of iron and bronze began to appear. The late period showed a continuation of the practices of the middle period, with some exceptions. Supine or extended burials continued to be practiced. In many burials, intact pots were placed over the corpse. The practice of covering the corpse with broken pottery still existed, but on a reduced scale. The offering pots were mainly red-on-buff painted pots to replace later by red-on-red pots. Toward the end of the period, red burnished pots became the most common grave offering. Grave offerings were of a wider range than previous periods, with more elaborate bronze ornaments being found. The majority of the implements found were of iron. Some of the child burials contained glass beads and clay rollers.